Some research in South Africa shortly. Explain how he landed in South Africa, because it's not that obvious. He's an engineer. He does environmental science here in Groningen, so it's not that obvious. But he wanted to do an internship abroad. So I thought maybe Ethiopia is a good thing. We had a student, PhD student from Ethiopia here, Bikila Dullo, and he is now a staff member of the University of Addis, and he had a project. So we decided that would be a good subject, and then a sort of war broke out in that area, very close to Addis Ababa. Government, soldiers, several people killed. So we decided it would not be a good idea. So South Africa was then another option, because this is a peatland. It looks like a grassland, but it is not. And it was a peatland I visited in 2004, and I had no idea what it was. It was such a strange thing, and we only visited for one day, so we didn't have time to find out. And then later on, it turned out that it was a huge debate how the hydrology of this area worked. There were two hydrologists in South Africa fighting fiercely with another. That's always interesting, because then you can more or less take a side.
So there was a war there?
There was a sort of war, but it was with words. It was with words. So in the Netherlands we have a saying for that. Als 200 vechten om een been, gaat de derde ermee heen. And this is in English, when two dogs are fighting for a bone, the third one takes it all. So that's more or less the situation Sam got in. He is going to report on his research and describing the controversy about the hydrology of this peatland. Sam?
Thank you very much, Ab. First of all, I have to thank all the people that made this possible, of course. My supervisors, well, especially I have to thank you, Ab, because you gave me this awesome topic, and also this last year has been really great for me to learn about not just peatland, but everything around this, and all these people that I have met. And thank you all of you for being here, of course. I'm really glad. This is more than a presentation for me. It's also kind of a farewell of this wonderful experience. Okay, let's go to this. This is important. Eco-hydrological analysis of the Vankervelsvlei peatland in South Africa is my research topic for my master thesis. And as usual, well, the normal content, introduction, study area, the aim of the research, and methods to analyze this. Please, come in. You know about this topic. You have a lot to say. Then the methods, the results. I'm going to discuss the results, and finally, hopefully, we have a nice conclusion. Peatlands. You know, they are really important. They cover only 3% of the land area, but they store more than 30% of the terrestrial carbon. Really interesting. Most of the peatlands are found in the northern hemisphere. However, also a significant amount for the country, for South Africa, it's not significant worldly speaking, but for South Africa it's an important matter, and also they are pretty precious because it's quite a dry area. Most of them are found in the eastern coastline, here as you can see. However, we have some in the south, which is where our study area is located. We'll go to them. Lately, in the last years, there is a new approach to understand this wetland system, which is called eco-hydrological landscape analysis, which, yeah, it's mainly done by Grootjens and Jansen, and it's a cost-effective approach which combines two main things, which is a quick hydrological system analysis and plus some key ecological and pedological factors, for example, like vegetation observations or also the soil structure. It's also quick analysis of these key factors. The methods comprise mainly three different kind of analysis. Physical analysis, like hydraulics and temperatures. I will explain you also what this means. Hydrochemical analysis of water quality and stuff like that. And also isotopic analysis. Stable isotopes, oxygen-18, deuterium, also radioactive isotopes like carbon-14. Okay, hydraulics. We have two ways to measure this. I'm going to explain you for what it is done. Then we can go deeper if you have some question of how this works. Water tables, mainly according to water levels, we can estimate the water flows. That's really interesting. But also combined with hydraulic pressures, we can also know which areas or which points can be infiltration areas. That's it. A downward movement of water going to deeper layers, or exfiltration of groundwater. Groundwater can be coming up there. So with these two things, we can have a good estimation of the water flows. However, in sandy soils, the difference sometimes are too small, because in sand, it's really high permeability, and the conventional measurement methods, they are just by hand. They have an accuracy of 0.5 centimeters, so sometimes can be not enough. Therefore, we have this peat, the temperature of the peat measurement that can give us a bit more clear idea of longer-term water flows. Water quality, as I mentioned to you, we studied the macroions, which can give us also ideas of the origin of the waters and also of the movement of the waters. The stable isotopes are oxygen 18 and deuterium, that mainly are used in this approach to understand some evaporation signatures in the water. Unluckily, we didn't get the results yet, so they won't be presented, of course, for this presentation. And finally, the radiocarbon dating of water. It's also interesting because it can give us an idea of how old the water is, so also where is the origin. If it's a local system, if it's a closed system, or just rainwater, which is pretty recent. Let's go to the study area. It's located in the south of South Africa, as I mentioned you already, between the cities of George and Knysna. It's located in this area that is pretty green because it's known as a all year rain. It has 800 millimeters a year of rain, and this is a temperate coastal climate. Okay, and here you can see in red, well, not that clear maybe, but this is the wetland that is only 5 kilometers from the coast. Okay. Yeah, here we have the shape of the wetland. The wetland is not more than 25 hectares, it's not big, and it's located 150 meters above sea level. Okay? The surrounding areas are stabilized Aeolian dunes, really old sand dunes that are now stable. They don't move, they are stuck together because they are 100,000 years old. And currently, as you can see, there's a industrial pine plantation all around the wetland. Nowadays there is no visible surface water inflow, so you cannot see a river or anything going into this wetland. However, it's important to notice which are the closest water bodies. Here is our wetland in white, and the closest water bodies are 2 kilometers to the northeast, the Haukama River, and also 3 kilometers to the southwest, the Groningsvlei Lake. These water bodies are located 120 meters lower than the wetland. It's important to have this in mind when analyzing hydrological system of the wetland. Why did we choose this wetland? Well, of course, because of what I've mentioned, there was this huge dispute that is really interesting already, but also because this peat has a really thick layer, one of the thickest of South Africa, with more than 10 meters thick. And the peat is dated the deeper layers from 7,000 up to 40,000. There's also dispute about that, but we couldn't also go into that. However, the clay layers are even more than 40,000 years old. This is really interesting because there's organic matter stored here that has information about, for example, environmental changes of the late Quaternary in this area. Interesting. There is likely in the literature likely that this was formed as an open body like a lake, a coastal lake that started to fill up with sediment, and also plants started to grow, floating plants, and then these plants they cover completely, as you can see here, completely the area, and now even terrestrial plants are growing on top of this, which is called now a partially floating mire, or a schwingmoor in Afrikaner, I think. I don't know if Dutch also. Or maybe Dutch, not in Afrikaner. Okay, this process is called terrestrialization. Okay, so it's the most likely formation of this wetland. And finally, we're going to check the hydrology. I've mentioned already there is a dispute. There is no surface water inflow. So there's two theories. One is it's fed, of course, by rain, direct rainwater, but also the deep main aquifer from the Table Mountain group, which is the main aquifer in this area. The water is coming up through this sandy strata, up and feeding also the wetland, which with really old water, of course, stored in this main aquifer. This is one. Then Parsons said, no, this is not possible because of the strata that is too sandy, so this aquifer must be around about 100 meters lower. The water to come up in this sandy soil is pretty impossible. But he didn't present new evidence. He just said it's not possible, and therefore this is just fed by rainwater. And there's a clay layer that is stopping this, and it's a perched aquifer, a perched wetland here. So this is the two theories. Okay, let's go to the aim, because it's really interesting. It's really it's pretty unique kind of wetland. This, not just the southern hemisphere, that you don't find that many of these ones, but also in South Africa, of course, and because it has the great potential to understand some environmental changes of the lake quaternary in this area of South Africa. There's nothing else like this in this area of South Africa. It's really important to clarify this discrepancy between these two theories about the hydrological system. So it's pretty direct. The research question then is, what is the nature of the hydrological system that it controls and supports this peatland? Okay, let's go to I hope you are all following me. If not, well, you can ask me a question at the end. The general methodology, as I mentioned already, is this eco-hydrological approach with this quick hydrological system analysis. Sorry, please. This quick hydrological system analysis, plus these key ecological factors and hydrological. Particularly for this research, we have these methods. First of all, we did a literature review and also some in situ observations to understand the geomorphology and topography of the wetland, and surrounding the wetland, not just the wetland. Then the hydraulic measurements, water table, and hydraulic pressures. We did 3 measurements within the month of May and June of the present year. Plus that, we calculate the peat temperature in 4 transects with a 2-meter probe, seeing every 20 centimeters how is the profile, how is changing temperature. Okay, and then we did in these 4 transects. Finally, the water samples, macroionic composition, stable isotopes, and also the radiocarbon dating samples. Okay. While we were doing this, we also did some observations of the vegetation within and in the surrounding of the wetland, and also while we were drilling these holes to put these pipes, for measuring the water, to take the water samples, we also did some observations of the different layers present in these soils. Okay, let's go to the results then. First of all, we have the water table that I'm going to present in this graphic way. I'm going to present a lot of things in graphic way because it's way easier to understand. Here, these numbers are in centimeters. This is the water level in centimeters above a standard datum, which is 149 meters above sea level. But that's not important. We're going to see just that the higher values means that the water is a bit higher, and of course the water is going to go from high to lower points. Within the wetland, we have to see that there is between 1 and 2 centimeters difference between this side and this side. So, yeah, there is an hydraulic gradient that maybe is not big, but it's interesting, and it shows a trend that goes the same way as outside the wetland. As you can see here, we have higher values, and the values are lower in the northwestern side. The red arrows present the possible water flows. Then we will discuss the results. Or we can go a bit closer if you don't see. Sorry. Yeah, then we add the hydraulic pressures, which would give us infiltration and exfiltration points. The red arrows means that there is exfiltration of groundwater, so groundwater coming into the wetlands, okay? So in this side and this side. And finally, the green arrows show the different thing, the opposite, sorry, infiltration of groundwater, water coming down, so sinking here. all points in the same direction, that the water is coming from this side, crossing and going to the other side, and well, dripping all the other sides. Sorry. Let's see temperature profiles now. First of all, it's important to understand what does this mean. The groundwater temperature of the area is around about 16.5, because it's the average, yearly average temperature of the area. That's the temperature of the groundwater that the groundwater will take. Close to that. And the peak temperature that we measured it was always less than 14 degrees. So pretty cold compared to the groundwater. If there is any kind of groundwater input, we will see it as a warmer area. Okay? So here we have the more yellowish colors are, for example, warmer points. Here this transect, is transect A, which is in the widest part of the wetlands. You can see from southwest going up to the northeast. In these southwest points, we can see a warmer area. Okay? Don't take care about the shallower layers, because they are subject to changes from the day variations. When we go a bit deeper, up to 2 meters, we can see more stable variations. Here is more clear, maybe, input of groundwater, and here we have also something that we cannot make conclusion, but it's also warmer. But we have to remember that the peatland is pretty deep here, so we have just the two first meters of the peat. But this is the idea. I hope it's clear. Then, summarizing all the results of all the transects, all these arrows indicate where there is this higher temperature, indicating also groundwater input. Okay? This area. Let's go to the macroionic composition results. So, the most interesting findings is that we have an extremely low concentration of sulfate. What does it mean? That sulfate is a proxy for levels of oxygen in the water. So the water that is in the wetland, within the wetland, and in the surroundings is pretty anoxic or anaerobic water. Then we have that the chloride concentrations are rather high in general in all the observations also, and we will try to understand why. And with some difference in some transects. Here we have the same transect of temperature in the widest section of the wetland, and we can see that the bluish colors are lower concentrations, and the more red is higher concentrations. With double the concentration here. We have, the red color is even double the concentration than the blue colors. So, but these differences are found only in the shallow layers, and for understand which could be the water movement, we need also the results for the stable isotopes. So we need to still wait for the results to make conclusions about this. Finally, we go to the radiocarbon dating of water. I need to explain what this means. The results are presented as carbon-14 activity. If we have 100% of carbon-14 activity, it means that the samples are pretty recent, either to the standard the 1950 or more recent due to things like the bomb peaks or stuff like that. But we can discuss also about it. So if it's recent, if the sample is close to 100% activity, it means that it's recent water of an order of magnitude from 10 to 100 years. Okay. Here we present the results. Most of them, as you can see, are either 100 or more than 100, which implies that most of the water samples are recent water. So not old water coming from a deep aquifer. And finally, we found in red some samples that are deeper, that are a bit older. We will then discuss why. Okay, let's go then to the discussion. First of all, we did this literature review to understand the geomorphology in the surroundings of the wetland. It's really important to understand which is the hydrological system. This diagram is based on another area which has pretty similar characteristics to this area. Well, the other area is in the Maputaland coastline, in the eastern coastline, which is really well studied in South Africa. And the formation, the age of these dunes and everything is correlated, pretty correlated to the age of this one. So we can assume that it's similar. I'm going to explain you a little bit what this means. Here we have these really old sand dunes, that is, these old sand dunes that are already stuck together. And they had, of course, some, not impurities, but clays and also carbonates and other nutrients that they were washed out to deeper layers. And they accumulated there, and you can see here is a reddish point. The sand here is pretty permeable. It's just pure coarse sand. So the water can infiltrate pretty easy, and then it finds this pretty impervious layer. So the water would be directed to these valley bottoms, like here and here. And when you have this valley bottom with waterlogged conditions, are excellent conditions for wetland formations. So this is the theory behind, okay? And here you can see the two water bodies, that is the Haukama River and also the Groningen that is here, valley, sorry, okay? What about the water tables and the hydraulic pressures? As I mentioned you, they all point to this kind of theory. Water is coming from this side, from the west, sorry, from the southeast area, and dripping all over all the other points. It's dripping out. What is interesting about this? All the measurements outside the edge of the wetland were lower in water level than the wetland itself. So this can point to two things. One thing is that this possible perch water level, like the second theory that I showed you in the beginning, that this a perch aquifer. So we measure this thing, that we have water dripping out from all the points, or at least most of the other points. But also we have to have into account what are the possible mistakes in the measurement. While we are drilling these holes to put these pipes, we cross a lot of different clay and loamy sand layers. These layers are decreasing the infiltration, the subsurface runoff. But when we break them and we don't seal them properly, we can have some leakages, and then we're going to measure a biased water level. Why didn't we seal them properly? Maybe you are asking yourselves. Well, it's because if we put another kind of sediments, we're going to contaminate and pollute our samples. And for us, the composition of the samples, the macroions, they are really important. More important than this because, as I mentioned before, in sandy soils, this measurement can be so small, the difference, that can lead us to wrong conclusions. Therefore, we need more variables, like, for example, temperature profiles. What is the difference between temperature profiles and peak temperature? I already mentioned something. The water levels also, they are short-term. If it rains, they go up. If it's dry, they react really, really fast to changes. However, the peak temperature is way lower or longer term. It's slower, sorry. The long-term response. So this will give us other more stable water directions. What does it mean then if we assume that our results of water levels are correct, that we have some areas, here I don't know if it's clear, in this side there are some contradictions between both, that these are seasonal flows. So when it's pretty wet, the water is coming in, but when it's not wet enough, the subsurface runoff is more than the input of groundwater into the wetland. So we have seasonal flows here, and the rest is consistent. Input of water from here, and the water is coming out from these areas, or the main inputs and main outputs. Macroionic composition. Like we said, low sulfate, this would imply that there is anaerobic water, which has to be this groundwater that can come from the surroundings. Well, can come from anywhere, but it's groundwater, moving groundwater. Then we found also rather high chloride concentrations. Why is this? This is because the main source of chloride is the sea. The sea has this chloride that then is evaporated and transformed into these precipitations. The closer you are to the coast, the higher concentration of chloride you will have in the rain. And as I said, it is 5 kilometers only from the coast, so it's pretty close. Plus that, we have this forested area in the surroundings. This increased the high dry deposition. Dry deposition is, for example, we have this sea salt spray or something that is flowing, and the trees are filtrating this air, and that is stuck in the leaf, and then when water comes, everything is pushed out to the soil. Plus that, these fast-growing trees, they are also like practically water pumps. They are taking this water and transpirating this water up. So the chloride stays in the ground, but the water is evaporated, really highly evaporated by these trees, increasing the concentrations in the groundwater chloride. These all points that the main hydric source is, besides the direct rainwater in the wetland, is also a local groundwater system because of the high chloride concentrations. And because the chloride, I forgot to mention, is one of the main anions present in all the water samples. What about radiocarbon dating? Points in the same direction. All water is recent. So recent means, as I said, of course also direct rainwater, but also this local groundwater system that is collected in the surrounding dunes and coming in. Points in the same direction. We found some deeper samples that were a bit older. We also have information of the peat, the grade of the composition of the peat in these layers. In these layers, the peat is more decomposed. Therefore, the permeability is lower because it's a bit more dense and you don't have these pores that much. Therefore, the water moves way slower. And then the water can be here, slow down and stick together for hundreds of years. So that's the main reason. Let's go to the conclusions. First of all, rainwater cannot be the only source because there is a really high evapotranspiration in the area, which is higher than the rain input. So, and with all the findings and all the variables pointed to a local groundwater system. Okay? The catchment of this groundwater system is mainly in the southern dunes and also a little bit, as we saw with the temperature, in the western dunes. Why is the water not going down? Because of these several clay layers that we saw in the top parts, and also because of the theory that we have of deeper, higher concentration of clay also in deeper parts. So this impedes this subsurface runoff, the downward movement of water, and it directs all the water to this wetland. Because we found really particular points of input and more particular points of input at the main output is also located in a particular area, we can conclude that the water is coming, crossing the wetland, and then going to the other side. This would define the system as a flow-through system. So, well, the first theory of the water coming from the deep aquifer is somehow rejected because we didn't find any characteristic of being really old water. So we are not that sure